absolutely delighted to welcome Ransom Wilson, superstar flute player, soloist, chamber musician, conductor, and professor of flute at Yale University. So thank you so much.
My pleasure.
Thank you. I've got some questions, if I may. The first one is, how old were you when you started the flute? And what made you choose the flute?
It was late. I was 12. I don't know, the flute chose me, I think. You know, I could just, the sound of it just thrilled me, you know. But I have to say that I really, after reading about the instruments, I decided I wanted to play piccolo instead because you could hear it over the whole orchestra. I thought that was a cool aspect. And no one would let me start on piccolo. No one. I tried. Thank God.
The other question I have is, who has been your biggest inspiration, musician or otherwise?
A couple, I'd say. Rampal was certainly my greatest flute inspiration, and Alain Marion as well. I mean, what they represented, the school that they represented, and the history that's behind them continues to inspire me. You know, it's kind of disappearing, so I'm feeling like I have to kind of conserve it. But it's a great inspiration to me, and I was inspired by the soprano Montserrat Caballé a lot. I actually had a lesson with her. Watching her deliver a pianissimo with no stress taught me more than I can say.
Yes. That actually brings me on to my next question, which you kind of already answered, which was, have you ever had an epiphany with regards to your playing? So like a moment when maybe you've discovered something new which has changed it overnight, or maybe been taught something, maybe like you said about the singing, that changed how you
Yeah, I mean, in that I can talk more about that because my teacher at the time I was young, and he was trying to make me play with support for the first time. Because I had just been squeezing, you know, and everything was tight, my throat was tight, my lips were tight. And he said, you know, it actually takes more support to play piano than forte, which I thought sounded like, you know, diabolical talk. I mean, I thought he must be trying to ruin me or something. And so he said, okay, look, if you don't believe me, you need to go hear the singer. This is mid-60s, so she was at the very height of her power. And she was singing with small orchestras. I was in North Carolina. And she sang some Puccini arias, and I was changed overnight. She would just breathe absolutely effortlessly and with no tension at all sing the most difficult passage that you know sopranos spend their lives trying to learn, and I still remember it. You know.
And how hard was it to hear that and try and put what you learned as a singer into?
Well, I was lucky. I had just gotten a brand new flute, and so I thought, you know what, I'm gonna break it in a new way. I'm not just gonna kind of bash through everything I know, and I did, you know, long tones, and what I realized is that she was spinning these pianissimos at the top of her register with no effort here, but she's working very hard down here.
So also you're a very celebrated conductor, and I was wondering how you went from flute player to conductor.
I realized it was a completely different kind of skill. I mean, think about it. As flute players, we never move our arms ever, or we shouldn't.
Yeah.
So you know, the idea. So the entire expression comes from inside, and it's in the breath, in the air column, right? Conductor, the entire expression has to be in this area, using the arms principally. So I had no idea how to use my arms expressively. You know, I'd never done that. So I had to actually start at the beginning and kind of retrain, kind of rechannel my feelings.
So it must be very nice to be able to express yourself
in another way.
In another way.
Yeah, and they really are very different.
Has your path of success been a smooth one?
Oh God, no. No, I don't think there must be people who've had a smooth, I think
Surely
maybe
not.
Yo-Yo Ma had a pretty nice smooth path. It's not Perlman, but even they must have moments when things don't go the way they want them to, or they have a bad night. I mean, we don't perceive their bad nights certainly the way they do. I don't think I've ever heard Yo-Yo Ma have what I would call a bad night, but I'm sure he thinks that, you know. But no, I mean, I was dealing with this with my students just this week. I mean, they all come to me at some point and say, you know, I've been going in and out of, you know, liking the flute, being inspired, or is it worth it, you know? And I finally said, look, this is completely normal.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the people who are lucky are the ones that don't play the flute for a living.
Yeah.
You know, because they can do it whenever they want to, and it always gives them pleasure. And if it's not giving them pleasure, they can just stop. But if you're going to be professional, there are going to be days when you're just not going to be happy with what you're doing.
Might even hate it a little bit.
Yes, I mean, you know, but and mind you, the people who are having so much fun playing because they're amateurs have another job that they hate some days, you know. So, you know, it's whatever you're doing as a job, because it's an obligation some days, you're going to hate it some days. Yeah, people say, oh, you've had a lot of success. And yeah, I guess that's true, but there are days when I think, there must be some other way I could make a living, you know? It's just, but it's normal. I mean, that's what I should say to young people. There are definitely discouraging days, and you know, we just keep going.
You love what you do, right?
I do ultimately love what I do. Yeah, I mean, there's nothing else that's going to give me this kind of pleasure. That's the thing. I mean, you could probably make more money as a lawyer or a doctor, whatever, but you're not going to have the spiritual highs that we get from playing music. You're just not going to get it. I mean, you know, somebody yesterday was just saying, like, imagining what a surgeon must like. Oh yeah, I really cut that bone, you know. It's just not the same, you know. Yeah, right. It's just not the same, you know. He's not getting a spiritual.
Although saving a life.
There's that, yeah,
cool.
that's true. Well, we're also saving lives too. We're saving people from being mundane.
Ah.
So.
Love it.
Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, my very last question.
Yes.
What advice would you give to your younger self, and also what advice would you give to any young aspiring flute players?
I think to my younger self and to young aspiring players as well, I would say be patient, because you know, if you stick with it, you're going to be successful. Your success will come. I mean, I have a friend, a cellist, who says, you know, everyone ends up with the career that they deserve. And that has many meanings, you know, but I'd say, you know, if you work very hard and you refine your talent, you're going to have success. And the degree to which you're willing to work hard is probably going to be reflected in the amount of success that you have. On the other hand, I could say, you know, there are many ways to have a career. You don't have to be a soloist standing in front of an orchestra. You don't even have to be an orchestra player. You can be a chamber player. I have many friends who have gone into music therapy, and they feel so fulfilled by it.
Yeah,
there's all kinds of ways to be a musician and be successful.
Do you think maybe you might have to settle?
I wouldn't say that. I wouldn't say that you should ever settle. I think that you will find your level.
Find your place in the, yeah.
I think so, because I mean, the idea of settling for something sounds so depressing somehow, you know. Like, I wouldn't want to say to somebody, yeah, well, look, you don't have what it takes, so you're going to have to settle for this, you know, this other terrible choice. I would never say that to somebody, and I've only like twice in my entire career said to somebody, you know, I think maybe you should consider a different line of work. And I didn't say that because they weren't good. I never said it because they weren't good. It was because I could tell that they weren't happy.
Right. Yeah.
and that they were playing the flute because somebody else wanted them to,
Mm-hmm.
you know. And by saying that to them, I gave them permission to say, you know, you're right. And in both cases, it had a happy ending. Like they were like, yeah, you know, you're right. I hate this. I want to do something else. You know? But that's the best advice of all: is be patient, because your career will find you. What you're supposed to be doing, if you're open to it, will find you. Otherwise, you will be miserable trying to attain something that isn't right for you. I had to kind of let my career find itself, and I think that's probably what's going to happen to every single person out there, if they're open to that. So, young flute players, I'd say be patient and be open to whatever comes your way.
Amazing. Thank you so much. Thank you.